Yeah, I'm Jason Huxema. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Biology, and I'm the faculty sponsor for the Ole Miss Birders Club.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. How long have you been into bird watching?
Uh, I think since about sixth grade, which would have been 1986.
Okay.
I was really interested in birds back then because my parents and my grandparents had bird feeders in their yards, and I just thought they were really neat, and started getting books out of the library and kind of got intrigued. And then I did an internship for school in seventh grade where I was set up with some folks from the Grand Rapids, Michigan Audubon Club, and they kind of took me under their wing and took me on field trips, and I really got hooked at that point, and it's been at least a hobby and sometimes part of my career ever since.
Awesome. That's really cool. How did you choose to get involved with Ole Miss Birders?
Well, I was approached by Nick Dugan, who was the founder of the club. He was a student in one of my classes last year, and he became aware that I was a birder, and I think because he bumped into me over at Roanoke, one of the spots that I like to go look for birds, and he had the idea of starting a bird club, and once he found out I was into that, he approached me with the idea, and we brainstormed a little bit, and I thought, well, Nick seems to have a lot of energy and enthusiasm about this, and I'm happy to help. So, honestly, he really took the lead, and I've just been providing a little bit of advice here and there, especially on field trip locations and taking them out and getting some field experience.
Great.
And that was, I guess, last spring or summer when he approached me, and then we kind of kicked it off this past fall.
Cool. So I understand you have your own nonprofit organization, Delta Windbirds. Is that correct?
True. Yep.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Delta Windbirds was started by several of us who are birders in northern Mississippi, and one of our favorite groups of birds is the shorebirds, which is a name for a couple of different families of birds that include plovers like the killdeer, and sandpipers, and stilts, and avocets, and woodcocks, and snipe. Most of them have a longish bill that they use to feed by probing soft soil or mud, looking for worms and other invertebrate animals. And we really love those birds, and we've become aware over the years that a lot of those species are declining for some reason. Their populations are going down, and especially the ones that migrate. There are some of these birds that are relatively permanent residents in our region, but quite a few of them have these amazing migrations where they nest in the Arctic in northern Canada and Alaska, and they fly thousands of miles to the Gulf Coast or Central and even South America to spend the winter. And along the way, they have to stop over. They can fly more than 1,000 miles without stopping, but then when they stop, they really need high quality food to be able to rest up and refuel and put on energy reserves again before they keep going. And this is really critical for these migratory shorebirds. We think that part of the reason many of their populations are declining is because of a lack of adequate stopover habitat, where they can feed and just have high quality food for about 10 days or so before they keep going. This is especially a problem in the fall, when around here we don't get a lot of rain, so there's not a lot of natural ponding that happens in the agricultural areas. It used to be out in the Delta, Mississippi Delta, there was good habitat because there were all the backwaters of the river and the tributaries to the Mississippi would fluctuate a lot, and they had a lot of edges with mudflats. But now a lot of that is channelized for agriculture. But what we found was that you can create really good shorebird habitat within the working agricultural landscape if you do it at the right time of year and you do certain things. For example, old catfish ponds on active catfish farms or former catfish farms that have been co-opted for duck hunting, you can draw down a pond during the fall to just a few inches of water or even mud flats, and shorebirds will flock to those like crazy, and just thousands of them will use those mud flats. And so there was a program a few years ago after the oil spill in the Gulf that worked with private landowners to pay them an incentive payment to actually do that during the right time of year, during like July through October. And that program ran out of money in 2013, and we decided to start a nonprofit organization to pick up where they left off, basically. And so we try to raise money to then have funds to work with private landowners and help them to manage their lands for shorebird migration, basically drawing down their ponds to create mudflats. We also try to educate people in our region about the biology of these birds and teach people how to identify them and how to enjoy them. So we sponsor field trips and identification workshops for those birds and also others in our area, because the birding is really great around here, and a lot of people are interested in learning more about it. So we try to help with that.
Really cool. What kinds of events have you done or are planning to do while working alongside Ole Miss Birders?
Well, with Ole Miss Birders, we've had a field trip about every month where we go out looking for birds in our area. So, for example, back in I think it was in November, we did a field trip where we hopped around to a couple of different spots on the reservoirs around here, Sardis Lake and Enid, and looked for ducks and other associated water birds. Earlier in the fall, we had a field trip where we went up to Sardis Lake and looked for migrating songbirds like warblers and thrushes and tanagers. This past Saturday, Delta Windbirds had an event that was attended by some of the Ole Miss Birders. And this was a sparrow identification workshop. Around here in the winter, we get lots of sparrows that come down from further north, and they spend the winter in fields and forest edges around here. And they're very diverse and really interesting birds, up to about 10 or 12 species that can be seen around here. And every year now we're trying to teach one or two workshops on how to find and identify these birds. And this past Saturday we had one of those events. We went up to we had an indoor session in the Shoemaker Hall here where we compared specimens and talked about identification and listened to songs and calls and tried to learn those. Then we went up to the Sardis waterfowl refuge up on Sardis Lake and tromped around and found about 7 or 8 species of sparrows. And we had about 25 people participate and had a really great time. The next couple of weeks we have a couple of other events coming up.